Codo, aka Codoman, and welcome to another episode of Codo Cinema, the podcast show where I talk about movies. For this episode, I'm going to talk about the 1978 American musical romantic comedy Grease. And this movie is directed by Randall Kleiser in his feature directorial debut from a screenplay written by Bronte Woodard. This is an adaptation based on the 1972 stage musical of the same name with co-producer Alan Carr with Jim Jacobs and Warren Casey. The film depicts the lives of greaser Danny Zuko and Australian transferred student Sandy Olsen, who develop an attraction for each other during a summer romance. Now, the film, as I mentioned, is directed by Randall Kleiser, with Bronte Woodard doing the screenplay, adapted by Alan Carr, and of course, this is based on, as I mentioned, based on the actual musical that came out in 1972 by Jim Jacobs and Warren Casey, to which Alan Carr also produced the film along with Robert Stigwood. And the film stars John Travolta, Olivia Newton-John, Stockard Chaney, Jeff Conaway, Eve Arden, Frankie Avalon, Joanne Blondell, Ed Burns, Sid Caesar, Alice Ghostley, Dottie Goodman, and Sean Nana, with cinematography done by Bill Butler, edited by John F. Burnett, and music by Michael Gibson, and it was distributed by Paramount Pictures. The film itself came out June 16th of 1978 with a runtime of 110 minutes. Plus, the film had a budget of $6 million. As with this episode, I'm going to give him my background on this movie. Plus, I am breaking down this movie, and of course, trivia as well. Plus, my overall thoughts. I will mention some of the songs as well, and two scenes that I want to mention from this movie that I'm also going to talk about after I break down this movie. So there's definitely a lot to talk about in this episode. So let's get right to it. The film was successful, both critically and commercially, becoming the highest grossing musical film at the time. Its soundtrack album ended in 1978 as the second best album of the year in the United States, only behind the soundtrack of the 1977 film Saturday Night Fever, which also starred John Travolta, and the song Hopelessly Devoted to You was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Original Song. And of course, it also received 5 Golden Globe nominations, including Best Motion Picture, Musical or Comedy, and 2 for Best Original Song for Grease and You're the One That I Want. In 2020, Grease was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. The film's success also spawned a sequel titled Grease 2, which was released in 1982, starring Maxwell Caulfield and Michelle Pfeiffer as a newer class of greasers. Few of the original cast members reprised their roles, and as of 2023, a short-lived prequel television series which debuted on Paramount Plus called Grease: Rise of the Pink Ladies was released. Unfortunately, that television series was short-lived. And of course, this is also brought up. There's also a prequel film titled Summer Lovin', which is currently in production. So anyway, the film's director, Randall Kleiser, he took numerous liberties with the original source material. So we're going to the background of this, by the way. So Randall Kleiser took liberties with the original source material, most notably moving the setting from an urban Chicago setting based on William Howard Taft High School, as the original musical has been, to a more suburban location reflecting his own teenage years at Radnor High School in the suburbs of Philadelphia. Writer Warren Casey was said to have based the high school on Gorton High School in Yonkers, New York. He had little control over the musical aspects of the film. His choice of theme song, a composition by Charles Fox and Paul Williams, was overruled when Robert Stigwood and Alan Carr commissioned a song from Stigwood's client, Barry Gibb, at the last minute. Some numerous liberties and changes that were overruled by the producers. So let's talk about the casting for this. So John Travolta played Danny Zuko in this movie, who had previously worked with Stigwood on Saturday Night Fever, recorded the top 10 hit Let Her in 1976, and had previously appeared as Duty in a touring production of the stage version of Grease. As part of a three-picture deal with Stigwood, Travolta was given the lead role after Henry Winkler, then starring as Arthur Fonzarelli on Paramount's TV series Happy Days, and Henry Winkler turned down the role for fear of being typecast as a greaser character. Although he would later regret the decision. However, director Randall Kleiser had never directed a theatrical film before this, but had directed Travolta in the 1976 telefilm The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Kleiser helped Travolta maintain focus as he grieved the death of Diana Hyland, his girlfriend at the time, and his on-screen mother in Bubble. Before Newton-John was hired, Alan Carr was considering numerous names such as Carrie Fisher, Anne Margaret, Deborah Raffin, Susan Day, and Mary Osmond for the lead role. Fisher, who had recently finished Star Wars, was ultimately rejected because neither Stigwood nor Carr knew if she could sing. Osmond almost took the role because she realized the extent to which the character transformed into a rebel and turned it down, to star in Going Coconuts instead. Carr eventually chose Newton-John after a chance encounter at a soiree hosted by Helen Reddy. Newton-John had done little acting before this film, with only 2 film credits: 1965's Funny Things Happen Down Under and a little scene 1970 film Tomorrow, which predated her singing breakthrough. To her name up to that time, she requested a screen test prior to accepting the role. Newton-John thought that she wasn't going to get cast as she was 28 years old. Newton-John agreed to a reduced asking price in exchange for star billing and the ability to rewrite the script, which included changing her character's origin to an Australian immigrant to avoid having to emulate an American accent, and making her less passive. In a case of life imitating art, Newton-John's own musical career would undergo a transformation similar to that of Sandy Olsen's character. Her next album after Grease, the provocatively titled Totally Hot, featured a much more sexual and pop-oriented approach, with Newton-John appearing on the album cover in similar all-leather attire and teased hair. Lorna Luft, who would later be cast in Grease 2, and Lucy Arnaz both auditioned for the part of Rizzo, but a talent client of Carr, Stockard Channing, was cast several years after her last major film role and debut in The Fortune. At 33, she was the oldest cast member to play a high school student, and Kleiser made her and the other actors playing students take a crow's feet test to see whether they could pass for younger in close-ups. Softer focus was used on some of the older actors' faces. Channing lobbied heavily to keep the climactic song "These Are the Worst Things I Could Do" in the score over Carr's objections. Now, of course, Elvis Presley was considered for the role of the teen angel but died before production. Mary Osmond's brother and duet partner Donny Osmond was another potential teen angel before Evelyn was cast, as was Frankie Valli, who had been given the choice of either singing the theme or appearing as the teen angel. He chose the former, believing the theme to be a better song and more likely hit. Fabian was noted as the inspiration for the role in the musical's script notes, but he and Alan Carr had fallen out after Carr's brief attempt at managing Fabian's stage act in 1974, as Carr determined Fabian's talent was limited to headlining a lounge act. The role would revive Evelyn's career on the nostalgia circuit, with Valli noting that both Frankies both benefited from their appearances despite Beauty School Dropout not being released as a single. Jeff Conaway, like Travolta, had previously appeared in the stage version of Grease. He had played Danny Zuko during the show's run on Broadway. he did not get to perform Kaneki's featured number Greased Lightning due to Travolta's influence and desire to have that song for himself. Jamie Donnelly reprised her role as Jan from the Broadway show, the only cast member to do so, as her hair had begun to gray, but, but by this point she had to dye her hair to resemble her stage character. Lorenzo Lamas was a last minute replacement for Stephen Ford, who developed stage fright shortly before filming and backed out, and Mark Fidrich, who ran into conflicts with his full time career as a baseball player. His role contained no spoken dialogue and required Lamas to bleach his hair to avoid looking like one of the T-Birds. Now, adult film star Harry Reams was originally signed on to play Coach Calhoun. However, executives at Paramount dropped the idea, concerned that his reputation as a as a porn star would hinder box office returns in the southern U.S., and producers cast Seed Caesar instead. Caesar was one of several veterans of 1950s television, including Eve Arden, Frankie Avalon, Joan Blondell, Ed Burns, Alice Ghostley, Judy Goodman to be cast in supporting roles. Paul Lynde was considered for the role of Arden, ultimately filled, with a scene conceived for Lynde that would have had him in a Carmen Miranda outfit. Coincidentally, Frankie Avalon and Randall Kleiser had both appeared in 1966 Fireball 500, the latter as an extra. The setting of the musical was originally set in Chicago, but unfortunately got changed over to, reflect the director's, own life, right? The location-wise, which is probably the reason why it was filmed in California, if you know what I'm saying, right? So anyway, with the filming locations, opening beach shot was shot at Malibu's Leo Carrillo State Beach, making explicit reference from here to eternity. The exterior Rido scenes, including the front parking lot scenes, the auto shop, the summer nights, bleachers number, Rizzo's There Are Worse Things I Could Do, number of the basketball, baseball, and track segments, and the interior of the gymnastics gym were shot at Venice High School in Venice, California. During the summer of 1977, the Rido interiors, including the high school dance, were filmed at Huntington Park High School. The sleepover was shot at a private house in East Hollywood. The Paramount Pictures studio lot was the location of the scenes that involved Frosty Palace and the musical numbers Greased Lightning and Beauty School Dropout. The drive-in movie scenes were shot at the Burbank Pickwick Drive-In, and it was closed and torn down in 1989, and a shopping center took its place. Well, that's just rude. Why can't they make that an attraction, since that's where they filmed the scene for Grease, right? That moved the little drive-in movie theater, you know what I'm saying, right? But anyway, just to move forward, the race, which was basically the race between, which is the race that is going on at the LA River. The race was filmed at the Los Angeles River. Hey, I just said that. Between the 1st and 7th Street bridges, where many other films have been shot, the final scene where the carnival took place used John Marshall High School in Los Feliz. Furthermore, owing to budget cuts, a short scene was filmed at Hazard Park in LA. Now, during post-production, several scenes inside the Frosty Palace contained obvious blurring of various Coca-Cola signs. Prior to the film's release, producer Alan Carr had made a product placement deal with Coca-Cola's main competitor, Pepsi. For example, a Pepsi logo can be seen in the animated opening sequence animated by John David Wilson at Fine Arts Films. When Carr saw the footage of the scene with Coca-Cola products and signage, he ordered director Randall Kleiser to either reshoot the scene with Pepsi products or remove the Coca-Cola logos from the scene, as reshoots were deemed too expensive and time-consuming. Optical mats were used to cover up or blur out the Coca-Cola references. The blurring covered up trademark menu signage, and a large wall poster, but a red cooler with the logo could not be sufficiently altered, so was left unchanged. According to Kleiser, we just had to hope that Pepsi wouldn't complain. They didn't. Now, of course, due to an editing error, a closing scene in which Danny and Sandy kiss was removed from the finished print and lost before its theatrical release. The scene was preserved only in black and white. Kleiser attempted to have the existing footage colorized and restored to the film for the film's re-release in 1998, but was dissatisfied with the results. The scene is included as an extra on the 40th anniversary home video release, and Kleiser hopes to make another attempt at colorizing the footage that is effective enough for the footage to be inserted into the film as he originally intended by the time the film's 50th anniversary comes out to 2028. Now that's the background of this movie right there. Also, as a side note, I have seen this movie many times, and to be quite honest, I enjoyed this movie for what it is. I mean, I love John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John in this movie, but but when I'm thinking of this movie, I am thinking of the music. The music in this movie is really, really good. They got some catchy songs in this movie that you'll definitely remember, and of course, many of the lyrics you'll definitely remember when watching this. And this is a coming of age film. This is also a movie with actors who are basically in their mid to late 20s, right? Because many of the teenage actors are like in their mid to late 20s, maybe 30s. I mean, of course, if you count Olivia Newton-John, who was at the time when this movie came out. She was 30 years old when this movie came out. Like, she was 30 years old when this movie came out, and she was like literally right at the 30-year-old mark when they were making this movie. So that is huge right there. That is huge right there. If you tell me, that is huge right there, to be quite honest. And also, you all are probably wondering why I picked this movie. Well, the reason why I wanted to talk about this movie is because just recently, my high school, which is Naperville Central High School, did a school musical of Grease, and I took my twin brother Mike to go see it, and we enjoyed the school musical of Grease, and it was fun. We had a lot of fun watching the musical. I mean, I have never seen the actual musical of this movie, even though, yes, I've seen the high school musical of Grease, but I have never seen the actual stage production. So I'm pretty sure that's basically a lot different compared to the high school production, and I enjoy it. And this gave me the idea to talk about the movie. So why not talk about this movie, right? But anyway, let me tell you more about this movie, Grease. So let's get to the breakdown, shall we? So the movie opens up in 1958 during the summertime. Danny Zuko and Sandy Olsen, both being played by John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, met at a beach. But then the summer ends and Sandy and Danny said their last goodbyes. Danny does not want to let Sandy go, but Sandy is due to return to Australia. However, Sandy's family had a change of plans and does not return to Australia, but Danny is unaware of this. So Sandy enrolls at Rydell High School as a foreign exchange student, where Danny is a student, as is Sandy's new friend, Frenchie, being played by Diddy Khan, a member of the schoolgirl clique, the Pink Ladies. Danny is the leader of the boys' gang called the T-Birds. Kaneki, second in command of the T-Birds, encourages Danny to tell them what he did over the summer, while the Pink Ladies likewise persuade Sandy. Through the song Summer Nights, the song like Summer Nights is basically like, tell me more, tell me more. That song? Yeah, that's where you get the lyrics like, tell me more, tell me more. This is basically describing, Danny and Zuko, how Danny and Zuko, like, you get the Pink Ladies saying, tell me more about this boy that you met. And then, of course, the same with the T-Bird saying, tell me more about this girl that you met. Oh, man, that is amazing right there. Look, the song Summer Nights, good song. In fact, they actually did a parody version of this they did a parody version of Summer Nights for a T-Mobile commercial that features Zach Braff and John Travolta. Although the lyrics were changed up, although they still say the tell me more, right? Good commercial, by the way. But anyway, let's move forward. So through Summer Nights, Sandy and Danny describe their vacation, and it is made clear that Danny is exaggerating at the time. However, neither of them are aware of the other's presence at the school. So the Pink Ladies decide to reunite Danny and Sandy, but Danny wants to protect his cool image, and his behavior towards Sandy causes her to storm off in tears. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, when Danny and Sandy met again, like, Danny was surprised at first. I mean, Danny and Sandy were surprised, but of course, Danny just wants to, protect his cool. It's like, hey, yo, what's up, pretty girl? You looking hot, right? For those who have seen this movie, if you really pay attention, like, Danny's being like the good boy at one part, being the good boy for a sec, but then some of the guys were like, "What the hell is this guy doing? I thought he was one of us." And then Danny was like, "Oh yeah, hey, what's up, pretty girl?" Sandy was like disappointed. Sandy was like, "You're not the Danny Zuko I remembered." So yeah, even the T-Birds was like, "Ooh, that girl's got some fire inside her." So anyway, Sandy storms off in tears, and Danny stares after her for a moment, but then but then quickly turns back to a cool guy and goes off with his friends. So basically, Danny was basically a when it was just Sandy and Danny at the beach, like they were both good people, right? Danny was the good boy, Sandy was the good girl, but unfortunately, after the split happened, Danny was basically the bad boy, right? The greaser himself for the T-Birds, right? So then Rizzo soon gets fed up with Sandy's goody two shoes behavior, and Rizzo takes Sandy under her wing, and they're basically at the house. They're basically at one of the Pink Ladies' house, and they're basically having a slumber party, right? So and Sandy, and then of course Sandy is there. Sandy's trying to be like the good girl that she always is, and of course Rizzo had Sandy smoke a cigarette, which Sandy chokes on it. Although, however, up next, Sandy, they also want Sandy to have a taste of wine. To which Sandy says, "Oh, I actually had wine at a wedding for one of my relatives." However, she couldn't stand the taste of it, but she is later horrified at the idea of having her ears pierced. Frenchie insists and takes her to the bathroom, but Sandy vomits at the first sight of blood. So I guess Sandy has never seen blood before, huh? Looks like she drew first blood then. Better call Rambo, huh? Frenchie announces to Jan, played by Jamie Donnelly, and Marty, played by Dina Manoff, that she is dropping out of Rydell and going to beauty school. Rizzo, being played by Stockard Chaney, has had enough and lampoons Sandy. This is basically, like the song, leading into the song number. Look at me, I'm Sandra D. That song number, like, she's basically insulting Sandy, right? She's singing and telling all of her girlfriends about Sandy, like Sandy's lifestyle, like she's poking fun at Sandy's lifestyle, like she's basically, like she's like a virgin, she's pretty, she's a goody two shoes. And of course, she looks at pictures. One of them featured Elvis Presley, to which Elvis Presley was going to be in this movie, but unfortunately he passed away. He passed away prior to the production of this movie. And then once that's all out of the way, Sandy comes out of the bathroom and she's like, "Are you all making fun of me?" Yeah, Rizzo is making fun of you. So then another scene later, Kaneki and his gang of T-Birds are basically singing in the car while yelling like hell in the car until Kaneki told them vultures to shut up, and of course gets Rizzo outside, right? Like, looks like Kaneki is basically going on a date with Rizzo. And of course, Rizzo and Kaneki told the boys to get out of the car, right? So they all get out of the car, and it was just Kaneki and Rizzo. So then later on, Sandy decides that in spite of everything, she still loves Danny. Okay, so basically, even though Danny is basically, being more of a cool guy, Sandy still sees like good in Danny, so she still loves him. So then the scene shifts to Rizzo and Kaneki making out passionately in the back seat of his new car. They plan to take things a step further, but Kaneki's condom breaks. So basically, they're making out of the car. They're having sex in the car, but so basically, they're having sex in the car. But unfortunately, Rizzo is unable to resist Kaneki, and they decide to, well, as like I said, have sex. Unfortunately, the whole car sex got interrupted by Leo, being played by Dennis Cleveland Stewart, leader of the rival gang, the Scorpions, who damages Kaneki's car. So the next day, while working at a repair shop, Danny gets the other T-Birds convinced that the rickety old car could actually be a piece, could actually be, and I quote, a major piece of machinery. And this major piece of machinery could be turned into Grease Lightning, which leads into the musical number Grease Lightning. Really love that song. I really love the Grease Lightning musical number. Like, it's just Danny Zuko and the boys singing it. And my goodness, I really love Grease Lightning. Grease Lightning, oh Grease Lightning, go Grease Lightning, dun 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 dun. Grease Lightning, go Grease Lightning. I mean, come on, man. Really, I mean, come on, man. You cannot deny the songs in this movie, guys. So anyway, later Danny meets Sandy at the Frosty Palace and tries to apologize for his actions. He sees that Sandy is sharing a soda with Tom Chisholm, being played by Lorenzo Lamas, a jock, and decides that if that's the sort of man she likes, he's going to join the jocks to impress her. So then Danny tries out for different sports, right? Basketball, wrestling, and baseball, where he keeps losing his temper. He finally finds his ideal sport in running until the sight of Sandy distracts him and he falls. Sandy leaves Tom Chisholm to see if Danny is alright, and they are seemingly reconciled. Wow, that was fast. So then Danny attempts to go to the Frosty Palace with Sandy so that they can be alone and not worried about ruining his image in front of his friends. So they end up discovering the T-Birds and Pink Ladies are already there, and Danny finds it hard to charm Sandy. To charm Sandy without looking like a weakling in front of his friends. So later on, Danny takes Sandy to the school dance where the TV show National Bandstand plans to broadcast live. Rizzo, now angry with Kaneki, takes the rival gang's leader Leo to the dance, thus enticing Kaneki to take the rival gang leader's girlfriend, Cha-Cha Di Gregorio, played by Annette Charles, who is also Danny's ex-girlfriend. Uh-oh, looks like Danny's in for some cha-cha action, if I'm right. So the disc jockey named Vince Fontaine, being played by Ed Burns, is attracted to Marty, and the two flirt. And during the dance-off, Rizzo leaves in a huff, seeing Kaneki dancing with Cha-Cha. And Danny and Sandy are one of the few couples still in the dance-off. But soon, Sonny pulls Sandy away from Danny, and Cha-Cha starts dancing with Danny. Sandy realizes that Cha-Cha was one of Danny's past girlfriends and a much better dancer. I mean, damn, that's low. Sandy leaves the gym upset, and Danny and Cha-Cha end up winning the contest. When they shared their spotlight dance, 3 of the T-Birds run in front of the camera and moon the crowd. Not the best way to put it there, but, well, it's the T-Birds. So later on, Danny takes Sandy to a drive-in movie, and Danny tries to remove the class ring he is wearing to give it to her. But in doing so, he accidentally elbows Sandy in the chest. Danny gives Sandy the ring, and she kisses him on the cheek, saying she realizes now he respects her. But unfortunately, the scene cuts to Marty and Rizzo in the drive-in's restroom. Rizzo's unprotected sex with Kaneki has come back to haunt her. She tells Marty she missed a period. And one of the T-Birds, Sonny, being played by Michael Tucci, overhears Marty accidentally proclaiming to couples making out outside the restroom to make way for the lady with a baby, and asks Marty what she meant, so she tells him the story, and the rumor spreads quickly. So basically, this is the gossip part, right? Teenage gossip. And when Kaneki asks Rizzo why she didn't tell him about it, She lies and tells him it isn't his out of anger. He thanks her sarcastically and leaves her standing by herself. Marty has also suffered as a result of her crush on Vince Fontaine. She reveals to Rizzo that she caught him trying to put an aspirin in her Coke. Back in the car, Danny has his arm around Sandy. His hands lingers above her chest, and she sees it and he starts trying to make out with her. She screams, gets out of the car, slams the door on Danny's hand, throws back his ring, which she calls a piece of tin. Oof, a piece of tin? She's heavy metal, man. And leaves the drive-in. Danny laments losing Sandy again. So the next scene is a race between Leo and Kaniki in the Los Angeles River. Kaniki asks Danny to be his second, and Marty gives Kaniki a lucky penny, but she drops it, and as Kaniki bends down to pick it up, he gets knocked out when one of the T-Birds opens the car door. Well, I guess that penny wasn't so lucky, huh? As a result, Danny has to race in Kaniki's place. Sandy sits on a hill watching the neck-and-neck race, which Danny manages to win, while she is happy to see Danny win. And of course, while this race is going on, the Greased Lightning song, it's an instrumental version, is playing in the background. And thankfully, Danny beats Leo, although he didn't go. Of course, he didn't win without. Of course, he won with a scratch because Leo's car scratched. It was Kaniki's car, but of course, Danny was driving it. And yeah, so of course, as the T-Birds and Pink Ladies celebrate with Danny, Frenchie spots Sandy and goes over to her. And of course, Sandy thinks that Frenchie can help her win Danny's heart back and asks to go over to her house to take advantage of Frenchie's suspect fashion skills. On the last day of school, there's a carnival going on, and Danny arrives wearing a Letterman's sweater earned through track over his usual black attire. Sandy arrives wearing a black leather jacket, red peep-toe high-heeled sandals, skin-tight black pants, off-the-shoulder top curled hair, and smoking a cigarette, abandoning her usual modest clothing, basically a good girl style, basically being the good girl turned into a bad girl. And of course, Danny sees her, and he was like, Sandy? And Sandy was like, tell me about it, stud. Yep, even the guys in the background were whistling about that. Looks like Sandy's hot now. Of course, Danny finds her extremely attractive, falling at her feet, and the two reunite, singing the upbeat You're the One That I Want, which is a fun fact, another song added for the movie and a hit single before the movie came out. And then, of course, Kaniki and Rizzo get together after Rizzo screamed from the Ferris wheel that she is not pregnant after all. And everyone sings the big finale, We Go Together. And Danny and then, of course, everybody was like, wait, we're all going to be graduating from high school. We may never see each other again. But of course, some of the students were like, what are you talking about? I mean, hey, we may be far distance, but hey, we're all in this together, right? Something like that. So anyway, with the We Go Together, Danny and Sandy fly off in Danny's car and disappear into the sky. And that's basically it. That is the whole breakdown of this movie. That's the whole movie right there. Oh boy. I mean, hey, that is a lot to talk about in this movie, huh? I mean, for a movie musical adaptation. So going into my overall thoughts on this movie, for a musical movie adaptation, I actually liked it. I enjoyed the music in this movie. The acting performances are good, and you know what? I enjoyed the story overall. So nothing much to say for my overall thoughts. And if I were to give it a rating, I give it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed this movie for what it is. It is a fun musical romantic film. The acting is good. The songs are good. I thought the story was pretty good too. And being a coming of age movie, it's still good. I mean, this is a coming of age movie, just to throw this out there. Like, it takes place at high school, and this is basically a romantic comedy musical film. So being as it is a pretty good coming of age romantic musical comedy. And of course, now this will definitely segue into the songs. Even though I talk about some of the songs from this movie, like you still gotta talk about it. I mean, there's so many songs that I cannot stop talking about, right? So you got the Grease Lightning one, which is obviously a favorite song of mine from this movie. Then of course you got the other song, which is the You're the One That I Want. And then of course you got the original song Grease, which was actually played. I'm pretty sure that was actually played at the beginning of the movie. I think that song was actually played at the beginning of the movie. And then of course you got Look at Me, I'm Sandra D. And then Hopelessly Devoted to You, which is basically Sandy's lament for Danny Zuko, right? Of course, you also got Summer Nights as well, which was actually pretty good. Now, going back to Look at Me on Sandra D, and I just noticed this, the song Look at Me on Sandra D refers to Sal Mineo in the original stage version. Mineo was stabbed to death a year before filming, so the line was changed to refer to Elvis Presley instead. Wow. Coincidentally, this scene, as well as the scene before and the scene after it, were filmed on August 16th, 1977, the date of Presley's death. And also, some of the songs were not present in the film. Songs that appear in the film but not in the soundtrack are La Bamba by Richie Valens, Whole Lotta Shakin' Going On by Jerry Lee Lewis, Alma Mater and Alma Mater Parody, and Rido Fight Song Alone at Drive-In Movie, Instrumental, Mooning, and Freddie My Love are not present in the film, although all three are listed in the end credits in addition to being on the soundtrack. Both Mooning and Rock and Roll Party Queen, the latter of which was played in the film as background music, were written in the musical for a character named Roger that was written out of the film, replaced by the non-singing Pootsy. And in general, all the songs in the musical that were performed by characters other than Danny, Rizzo, Sandy, Johnny Casino, or the Teen Angel were either taken out of the film or given to other characters, including Marty Maraschino's number Freddie My Love, Kanicki's Greased Lightning, and Duty's Those Magic Changes. Two songs from the musical Shaken at the High School Hop and All Choked Up were left off both the film and the soundtrack. And that's pretty much it. And that's pretty much it in terms of the songs, right? Grease Lightning is a favorite song. Is a favorite song of mine from this movie. Like, come on, I can't deny it. Like, it's basically Danny Zuko's theme it's basically Danny Zuko's theme when it comes to the car, right? It's like he wanted that car to go Grease Lightning. Oh man, I really loved how like it transitions from the garage to a white staged background of just Danny Zuko and all of his and all the T-Bird gangs, just singing and dancing along to Grease Lightning, basically talking about the car. They're talking about the car. Putting in new parts for the car to to start to bring in the Grease Lightning. If you know what I'm saying, right? And I especially love how it ends I especially love how the scene cuts back to the garage. Like it's basically a cut transition. There's no smooth transition at the end. It just cuts back to Danny Zuko and the gang at the garage, and Danny was like, "Come on, guys, let's put the parts in." Another favorite is obviously Summer Nights, which is basically the Danny and Sandy theme. Basically, like, what's this boy like? Hey, what's this girl like? Right? Because I'm all in it for the tell me more, tell me more. I mean, I'm all in it for that lyric right there. Like, come on, guys, tell me more about your partners, right? And then another one that I like, and then another one, You're the One That I Want. And I'm going to be completely honest, I cannot stop thinking of this song. When I think of, I cannot stop thinking of this song. And the reason why, because the song "You're the One That I Want" was featured in Deadpool and Wolverine, and it's during the scene where Deadpool and Wolverine fight in the car, and that song is playing in the background. That song is playing in the background while they're fighting, and basically basically making a bloody mess in the car, beating the living crap out of each other, and it's just I can't think of this song without thinking of Deadpool and Wolverine in the Honda Odyssey, which is the car they were fighting in. And it's kind of funny is when Deadpool says, "I take it all back. This Honda Odyssey screws up hard." And of course, referring to Wolverine, too bad you don't need a dick. And Wolverine's like, "Oh, we're just getting started, bub." And they continue fighting. When I think of this song, I'm thinking of the car fight in Deadpool and Wolverine. But for Grease, this is good. This is a good song. But for Grease, "You're the One That I Want" is a really good song for that movie, and a good way to close, and a good way to tie the knot for both Sandy and Zuko, right? Hey, Danny Boy's got his girl back. Oh man, I mean, you know, I mean, the outfit that she wears is also real good too. Is also real good too. Like, resembling, kind of what Danny Zuko is wearing, right? And of course, this is all going on at the carnival, right? But anyway, but anyway, that's about it for the songs, on my part. Now I'm going to set now speaking now of course that's it for the now of course this is it for the songs right here. Now this will obviously segue into a couple scenes I want to bring up. One of them I'm going to mention is at the end of the movie, and this is after "You're the One That I Want," which is basically we'll always be together, right? We go together. We go, which is obviously we go together, right? So, and to anyone who's listening, you'll definitely know what scene I'm talking about at the end of the movie. It's the scene where Sandy and Danny fly away in a red convertible as part of a happily ever after ending. This scene is meant to and and basically at the end when they're flying off into the sky, right? They're basically flying away. They're basically flying, right? I'm pretty sure some people may find this scene cheesy, so to say. That the and I can understand why some people are saying this. I mean, I thought the scene is okay. I thought the scene was fine. It didn't bother me. It's just the fact that people see this scene as cheesy. Now, like I said, I didn't think it was bad, but I guess they kind of they put that in the I guess the filmmakers put that in the film to well, obviously have a happy ending. It's a happy ending, but the way that the car flies at the end, I mean, yeah, it may seem cheesy to some people, but I thought it was okay. Now, I think the reason why it was like this, and the reason why the scene was meant to end like this, because the scene is meant to represent Sandy and Danny's love and the beginning of their relationship. The flying car is a symbolic gesture, not literal, suggesting that they are flying high with their new romance. And there are some theories suggesting that it could also symbolize Sandy's transformation and the beginning of a new chapter in her life. So I guess that's putting it right there. So that puts it right there for this scene. And I think that's the best way to describe it right there. The new chapter for Sandy Olsen and Danny Zuko. I think that's a good way to end the movie. I think that's a good way to go, right? A beginning of a new chapter for the two of them. Unfortunately, we didn't. Unfortunately, that didn't. I don't think that happened in the sequel though, because of a new cast. It was a different cast, even though some of the other cast members from the first film came back. But to me, I didn't think this movie needed a sequel though. Whatever. Now there are some people who thought that the final shot of Sandy and Danny flying. Some people thought that the flying car represents Sandy being whisked away to heaven. This is more of a speculation. And John Travolta, who was asked about this question, who was asked about this theory, he dismissed the theory as simply a mistake with the Coke signs in the background. So no, and of course this is basically referring to Sandy dead, right? But no, that's not the case. That's not really the case. But of course, the flying car being symbolized as Sandy's transformation. I mean, of course, dreamlike or fantasy-like ending, which is not meant to be taken literally, but rather as a visual representation of their happiness and the start of their journey together. And of course, from a good girl to a greaser girl, reflecting a shift in her personality and style as she embraces her newfound confidence and connection with Danny, which explains why at the end of the movie, where after the race, where Sandy is basically, she's still in her beautiful pink dress. She talks to one of the pink ladies, like, you think you can help me with something? Hey, you think you can help me, you know, with your makeup and stuff? So yeah, so she's basically going through a different transformation, right? Turning from a good girl to a greaser, right? Which explains why her hair was all puffy, right? Puffy and curled up. She's all in black with the red heels, right? And a cigarette in her hand. You know what I'm saying, right? But yeah, sure. And of course, obviously enough, the scene alone is not meant to be taken seriously. So I can get that. Like you, this is like a scene you gotta like expand your disbelief on. Like, it's not meant to be taken seriously. So there's people complaining about it. Like, they kind of just when there's some people complaining about it, took it seriously, saying like, oh, this is a bad ending. No, it's not. This ending is not meant to be taken serious. So just expand your disbelief, so to say, about that scene. But anyway, let's move forward. One more scene to mention, and this is from the opening animated sequence. So, the opening of this movie is an animated sequence, right? So, and I found out about this, and it turns out that Grease was almost an animated movie. So, according to this article that I found from Yahoo Entertainment, so shout out to Yahoo Entertainment and Jen Cusack, who wrote the article. Um, so it turns out that Grease was originally going to be an animated movie, and the animation for this would have been handled by writer, director, and producer and animator Ralph Bakshi, best known for the X-rated cartoon Fritz the Cat and the animated 1978 film Lord of the Rings. And this idea was originally going to happen once the film rights became available. So so Grease co-creator Jacobs so Grease co-creators Grease co-creator Jacobs detailed how Bakshi's movie version might have been different. They wanted to do it as a cartoon like Frizz the Cat, and they had certain things with the script. Jacobs tell us, I said, how does it end? Because Warren and I were kicking each other under the table, they said, well, Danny Zuko commits suicide. And I'm going to stop right there. I think Danny Zuko committed suicide. I believe that would ruin the movie, right? Like, the idea of having Danny Zuko commit suicide, I believe that would be a bad idea. Like, yes, this movie follows a romantic relationship between him and Sandy, even though there are times where Sandy and Zuko, like Sandy and Danny at the drive-in movie theater, they split off again, right? And Danny laments like and Danny laments like I gotta feel and Danny laments, but he doesn't think about suicide, right? He doesn't think of that, and the fact that the original idea, if that whole animated movie was gonna move forward, was having one of the characters commit, like having Danny Zuko commit suicide. I believe that would ruin the movie and ruin Danny Zuko's character, right? I think that was a bad I think that whole that is a bad idea, and I'm glad they didn't move forward with that. I'm glad they didn't move forward with that. And of course, and adding insult to injury, Bakshi's movie doesn't follow a plot similar to Grease, even though it does have a even though it does have Grease like characters. It's just that it was a different version. I mean, hey, I mean, I would not like that. I think it would have ruined the movie if they really went forward with that. Even if it was animated, and of course, follow the and follow the stage production, I think it would have been good, minus the whole Danny Zuko Danny Zuko committing suicide thing. Like that would have been bad, and it would ruin Danny Zuko, right? That would be bad. Now, of course, we did get something animated from Greece, and that is in the opening. Because in the opening of Greece, there is an animated sequence that featured, what appears to be Danny Zuko and Sandy waking up to, go to school. Like, we get Danny Zuko waking up. Basically, his bedroom is all mess. His hair is messed up. Goes to the sink, and the Grease theme song is playing in the background. He combs his hair with grease, obviously because he's a greaser, obviously obviously representing the greaser that he is, cool guy greaser, right? The cool guy, badass greaser, right? We get a moment where Sandy wakes up being, like a typical good girl princess, right? Like she wakes up, she got some forest animals coming by her side. I guess is a reference to Snow White. I guess Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. And so yeah, this is also developing like what their lifestyle is, and I think that is a good way to open up the movie. The animated segment, I enjoyed the animated segment of that movie. There's even some Easter eggs too, referencing the 1950s. Like the style and culture of the 1950s is really good in the animated segment. And of course, there were also and then of course, since being a Paramount movie, I actually caught, and you have to pause to catch some of the 50s some of the references from the 1950s. There's actually an animated movie poster of the Ten Commandments starring Charlton Heston, which actually came out in 1956, but that movie poster was animated. So there is a nice nod to the Ten Commandments that came out in 1956. There's also a animated photo of James Dean because at the time in the 50s, James Dean was basically a rising star, and unfortunately he passed away in 1955. James Dean, who was like a rising star, most notably in the 50s, he died in a car crash in 1955, and his last movie was called Giant, to which he was nominated for an Oscar. Like in the opening animated segment for Grease, there is a picture that features the young actor James Dean. So nice little reference to it too. But anyway, I enjoyed the opening sequence for that. It's just surprising to find out that this movie was originally going to be animated, but not like the actual stage musical. It may look like the stage musical, but not really. It's just going to be a lot different. And I'm glad they didn't move forward with that version. I'm actually glad they didn't. But anyway, that's about it for those two scenes right there. To wrap up this episode, let's talk about some trivia for this movie. So to start off, during the scene with when Olivia Newton-John's character Sandy is singing "Hopelessly Devoted to You," it was written and recorded after the movie had wrapped. Dame Olivia Newton-John's contract for Grease stipulated that she should have a solo song. However, nobody had any ideas for a song for her character, Sandy, until Olivia's producer, John Farrar, came up with "Hopelessly Devoted to You" halfway through the shoot. Director Randall Kleister wasn't wholly convinced by the song at first and had to come up with an entirely new scene to fit it in. It was eventually filmed and recorded after the movie had wrapped, and it earned the film's only Oscar nomination. Now, first of all, this is a really good song because this is basically Sandy's lament, right? Like she's thinking about, at that point she's thinking about Danny Zuko and how life would be like with Danny Zuko, right? I mean, she sees him as a man, as a good boy, but turned cool but bad boy, since he's a greaser. But at that point, with that song "Hopelessly Devoted to You," she still sees Danny as like there's still some good in him, right? Being the film's only Oscar nomination, like the Golden Globes nominated two other songs, right? Which is the Grease theme and the "You're the One That I Want." How come this one was not nominated for a Golden Globe? Yet you had two other songs that got nominated for Golden Globes, right? They're two different songs. This one, I guess you can say maybe this one had more of an emotional impact. I guess you can probably say probably the reason why this got nominated for an Oscar. I mean, it's good that it got the recognition it deserves, but come to think of it, I feel like this movie would have gotten at least a couple of more Oscar nominations. I mean, but to be honest, I still like the song for what it is, but it's good that it got nominated for an Oscar. I mean, it's just surprising that this wasn't even nominated for a Golden Globe. Yet they had two different songs from Greece that were nominated for Golden Globes. But anyway, "Hopelessly Devoted to You," still a good song. Still good that it got the recognition it deserves. And speaking of Olivia Newton-John, in 2019, she auctioned the leather jacket and pants she wore in the finale for 405 grand, around that price, for the benefit of her cancer research charity. Spanx founder Sarah Blakely bought the pants. The anonymous winning person who was doing the bidding of the leather jacket, which sold for 243 for at least 243 grand, later returned to Olivia. And the outfit that she wore at the end of the movie, in the outfit that she wore at the end of the movie, right? Her zipper broke, and Olivia Newton-John had to be sewn into the trousers she wears in the last sequence, which is the carnival at Rydell. And of course, during the final musical scene, "You're the One That I Want" with John Travolta, that was filmed with the help of a traveling carnival, and director Randall Kleiser decided that the next day the additional shots were needed for close-ups. The carnival had left town, so set decorators were called in to build replica backgrounds that matched the carnival ride's construction for the close-ups. Now, a couple things to mention during the greased lightning sequence, most notably with Jeff Conaway's character Kaneki. Jeff Conaway was supposed to sing "Greased Lightning" as it is in the stage version. However, John Travolta used his clout to have his character sing it. Director Randall Kleiser felt it was only right to ask Conaway if it was okay. At first, he refused, but he eventually gave in. And another thing to bring up for Jeff Conaway, and this is also a sad thing too, because apparently Jeff Conaway was accidentally dropped, hurting his back during the musical number of "Greased Lightning." And he started taking painkillers, eventually abusing prescription drugs and spiraling into a drug addiction until he died in 2011 at the age of 60. Now that's really sad right there. Like Jeff Conaway did a good job playing Kaneki in Grease. It's just unfortunate he had an accident, and of course it really hurt his. Unfortunately, the accident hurt his back, which resulted in taking painkillers, spiraling into a drug addiction, and it's really sad. It really is. So, rest in peace to Jeff Conaway. While I'm also added, rest in peace to Olivia Newton-John, because because not too long ago, about 3 years ago, Olivia Newton-John passed away due to breast cancer, and she had breast cancer 3 times, and Prior to her acting career, she was an advocate and sponsor for breast cancer research, and unfortunately, she passed away in August of 2022 at the age of 73 at her home in California, which is Santa Ynez Valley of California. And it's really sad, and it's really sad. So rest in peace to Jeff Conaway and Olivia Newton-John, though. So anyway, just to move forward, during the Thunder Road scene, which is the race car scene between Danny Zuko and Leo, Annette Charles was in excruciating pain for what turned out to be an ectopic pregnancy, and that's why Cha Cha frequently leans against the cars. Now, of course, going to the dance contest. The dance contest was filmed during the summer when the school was closed. The gym had no air conditioning and the doors had to be kept closed to control lightning. So the building became stifling hot, and on more than one occasion, an extra had to be taken out due to heat-related illness. Now that is hot as hell right there, because filming in extreme heat, that is brutal, right? I get why they kind of did it, but couldn't they at least bring in, like, let a little bit of air inside, a little bit of cool air? I don't know if they had air conditioners back. I don't know if they had fans back then. Like fans that can that can be turned on just to give a little air, right? I don't know if that was the case back in 1978. Maybe it was, but dancing inside the school with doors closed with excruciating heat, that's gotta be that is brutal. Hey, at the very least, they got the dance contest in. I hope the people involved. I hope they were at least okay. Damn, that must have been real brutal for that one extra. But I hope that extra is okay, and I hope everyone in that scene was okay too. It's just crazy they had to film this in very hot in a very hot condition, right? Now moving forward, John Travolta, who played Danny Zuko, started rehearsals just 4 days after completing his film on Saturday Night Fever, which came out in 1977. Having two mega hit movies in a row made it difficult to return to honor his contract for Welcome Back, Kotter, which came out in 1975, but he fulfilled his contract, albeit with a reduced presence, and eventually left the show to pursue a movie career full time. Now, at the time of the movie's release, Grease was the third highest grossing film worldwide after Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope, which came out in 1977, and Jaws, which came out in 1975. And after the film's success, its top grossing musical in the US to date, this movie was supposed to have 3 sequels. And unfortunately, yes, there was Grease 2, which came out in 1982, but unfortunately that movie bombed at the box office and those plans were cancelled. In 2002, however, Diddy Kong, Dame Olivia Newton-John, and John Travolta were all pushing to have a Grease 3 produced, which would focus on the original cast and characters many years later in another decade, like the 1970s or the 1990s. But this movie never got beyond the planning stages. Now, I think that would be interesting. Although to be quite honest with you, I think it is a little too late because Dame Olivia Newton-John and Jeff Conaway already passed away, and I'm pretty sure some of the other people involved with the first Grease movie, I think some of them are still alive and some of them passed away, but if they were even if they did a Grease 3, maybe like in the 90s. In the 90s, taking place in the 1970s, because taking place in the 1970s, I think it would be interesting, kind of see where these characters are after high school, right? Like they may have jobs at that point, right? Although to be quite honest, the original Grease, which came out in 1978, took place in the 50s. So it would be interesting. So it would have been interesting if Grease 3 took place, if it came out in the 90s, but while also taking place in the 70s, it probably would be interesting. But unfortunately, I think at this point it is too late to do a Grease 3. I mean, let's be honest. The original Grease movie that came out in 1978 holds up better. I didn't think it needed a sequel, but to be honest, it would be interesting to see where these characters ended up after after high school. If that was the case, if they decided to move forward with this, if it was like if they decided to do this in the 90s, right? But anyway, that's enough about that. So going back to Jeff Conaway's character Kaniki, and this is leaning into his relationship with Rizzo, to which Rizzo is being played by Stalker Chaney. Um, the two characters got into a heated argument, which explained their attitude towards each other in the other diner scene, where Rizzo threw the malt in Kaniki, which is the milkshake that she threw at his face, at his face. There was a fight scene that was included, but it was cut because it didn't match the tone of the rest of the movie. So Randall Kleiser cut that cut that fight scene out, and it was much grittier, described by one crew member as looking like something Martin Scorsese might have directed. Now, comparing this to something Martin Scorsese might have directed, I can't I can't imagine that fight, what that fight scene would have looked like, and to be quite honest, to be quite honest, I'm kind of glad it was cut because I feel like it would have ruined the tone of the movie. To be quite honest, but hey, having a fight scene that is basically being compared to something that Martin Scorsese might have directed. I don't know how I feel about that, but I can't imagine what Martin Scorsese. I can't imagine what a musical would have been like if Martin Scorsese directed it, right? Because Martin Scorsese has been known to direct a lot of mafia movies, right? You know, like Goodfellas, right? And then he got The Departed as as well, right? So so I'm actually kind of glad that Randall Kleiser took that scene out of the movie. So I'm glad that Randall Kleiser took that fight scene out of the movie. Also, as a side note, in the high school stage production of Grease, to which my twin brother and I saw, Sandy slaps Rizzo on stage in the high school stage production that I saw. Now I'm not sure if that was the case in the actual stage production when it first came out, but that was like after the whole "Look at me, I'm Sandra D," right? Instead of like during that whole diner scene when she dumps Kaniki, right? I don't know if that was the case in the actual musical, but hey, well that's the one violent part that I saw from the high school stage production of Grease. But anyway, let's move forward. So You're the One That I Want, the song at the end of the movie, was filmed in one afternoon. Of course, Elvis Presley. I mentioned Elvis Presley. He turned down the role of the guardian angel in the beauty school dropout scene when Alan Carr first bought the movie rights to Grease. He envisioned Elvis as Danny and Anne Margaret as Sandy. Although that actually would be interesting because John Travolta did look, he kind of looked like Elvis Presley a little bit, but but let's be honest, John Travolta knocked it out of the ballpark with this one. So anyway, during the whole beauty school dropout sequence, yes, there is a guardian angel singing singing, right? And I think it was who was it? Was it Donny Osmond? I believe it was Donny. I think it was, yeah. Was it Donny Osmond? Oh, Frankie Avalon. Yeah, Frankie Avalon was the one who. Oh yeah, Frankie Avalon. Frankie Avalon was the one who sang the Beauty School Dropout. Although I think another singer was also on board for that. I think it was Donny Osmond who was the runner up to do it. But yeah, it was obviously Frankie Avalon who sang the Beauty School Dropout song in that sequence. Now, Jim Jacobs and Warren Casey, who wrote the original musical's book, weren't invited on set during production of the movie John Travolta, who had played duty on the road during the musical and gradually got more lines from Jacobs and Casey's versions into this movie, which was written by Alan Carr and Bronte Woodard, when Travolta didn't think of a line of dialogue was working. He would quote a line for the original, and director Randall Kleiser would tend to agree and use that line instead. And then, of course, the cast chewed about 100,000 pieces of bubblegum during the shoot, up to 5,000 pieces a day. And then most of the extras in this movie, the extras who were involved in this movie won a national-wide contest to be in this movie. So that's actually exciting right there. And of course, Danny's blue windbreaker at the beginning of this movie was intended to be a nod to Rebel Without a Cause, which came out in 1955, that starred James Dean. And I also mentioned that too. James Dean. There is a poster in the beginning of the movie during the animated opening sequence that there is an actual poster that featured actor James Dean. And the car that Kanicki drove in Greased Lightning is a 1948 Ford Deluxe convertible. The Scorpion's car is a 1949 Mercury Custom, briefly seen during the Pink Ladies. Briefly seen is the Pink Ladies 1940. Briefly seen is the 1948 Studebaker Commander Regal with suicide doors that is briefly seen from the Pink Ladies. And the car Danny takes, briefly seen as the Pink Ladies 1948 Studebaker Commander Regal, alongside the car that Danny takes to the drive-in is the Sin Wagon, which is a 1949 Dodge Wayfarer. And then the 1948 Ford Deluxe is the same model given to Daniel LaRusso for his birthday in The Karate Kid, which came out in 1984. And the theme song Grease was written by Barry Gibb of the Bee Gees, very much linking the movie producer Robert Stigwood's and writer and producer Alan Carr's hit Saturday Night Fever, which came out in 1977. Grease is also a 1970s style disco song, although the musical takes place in the 1950s, making it somewhat coincidental, I guess. The lyrics describe a lost generation in revolt and rebellion, which described the baby boomer generation in the 1960s and 70s better than the Eisenhower-era silent generation of the 1950s. Randall Kleiser did not like the theme song since it did not fit the movie very well. But he put it in anyway after pressure from the producers and the studio to do it as many tie-ins to Saturday Night Fever as possible. The song became a hit, and audiences seem to love it even though it is not from the original musical and really has nothing to do with the movie at all. I mean, hey, at the very least they kept the song in. So, I mean, without the song, I mean, it's still a good song. Grease is still a good song at the beginning of the movie. So even though, yeah, it is a bit of a coincidence because John Travolta was off the heels of Saturday Night Fever, even though that one had a similar, the Bee Gees song, staying alive, that song, right? So it did have some similar ideas to it, right? And also to add, the movie was originally rated PG and it was subsequently re-rated PG-13 for its 20th anniversary theatrically for the re-release during its 20th anniversary. Now that's actually interesting right there because back in the day you had G, PG, R, and X. There was no PG-13 back in the day. So and it wasn't until the mid 80s when the MPAA decided to put in the PG-13 rating, and that was basically around the time when some of the 80s movies leaned more into the over the top violence territory, which almost got an R rating, for some of those movies back in the late 70s into the early mid 80s. You know what I'm saying, right? Kind of like, like most notably some of the films that Steven Spielberg did, like Jaws, Indiana Jones, right? they went into like the over the top violence, and some of the violence in those movies almost got like lead into more R-rated territory, right? Even though they were basically PG, right? If you know what I'm saying. So with that movie, I feel like that movie today, at the very least, today's movie for Grease would have been rated PG-13, but with Grease, it was rated PG. So the fact that its 20th anniversary got a PG-13 rating, I mean, that was only for its 20th anniversary due to the fact that it referenced to smoking, drinking, sexual references, and of course the language as well. So there's like a lot of references, adult references in this movie. Even though it is a coming of age teenage comedy musical, they still snuck in those references to like, sex, smoking, drinking, and language, right? So they still did. So that still happened, right? That still happened in that movie, especially in some of the movies that came out way back then. Way back then. And that's pretty much it for the trivia for you. So that there you have it, folks. And that is basically it for my whole covering of 1978's Grease movie. Overall, I still enjoy this movie. It is a fun movie to watch. To anybody who has seen this movie, I'm pretty sure a lot of people enjoyed this too. And it still holds up to this day. The Grease musical really the Grease movie holds, and to this day, the Grease movie holds up to this day. And I'm really glad it is getting the attention that it deserves. Now, of course, in 2028, it's going to have its 50th anniversary. So we'll see how that. We'll see, and that will be for like another 3 years. So let's see what's gonna happen down the line with that. So there you have it, folks. That is my take on the Grease movie. So to anybody who is listening, what did you guys think of the Grease movie that came out in 1978? Did you like the movie? Did you not like the movie? Did you think the movie is okay? Do you still believe Grease holds up to this day? I would love to hear your thoughts. But anyway, that is a wrap on this episode. Thank you all for tuning in to Codo Cinema. I'm your host, Mark Codo, aka Codoman. Remember to watch movies and stay positive.